to have the angle. So we're coming into our 5th and final pick and bans. LDLC, the #1 LFL team on the blue. Dusty, the #1 and sole representative of the NLC on the red. 2-2, and the bans ain't changing now, Nymera.
Yeah, we started out with JDXL, X7, and Dusty. Now only Dusty remain from the Nordics and the UK. One last shot at the crown holders from the LFL. Bans following what we've known. There's no Wukong going to be banned away. No Sejuani going to be banned away. Yike picking up the Monkey General in the jungle. What are your picks going to be? A lot of other power picks up there. And
wow.
Backlund picking up the Ahri for the first time this series. And actually one of the big factors in the last game is that Backlund couldn't have the impact which he wanted to. Then Voxner on the other side going back to very much comfort for this series, comfort for this tournament. It is going to be the Civet. But now Ica has to have a choice of something a little bit different in that mid lane. Not going to have necessarily the easy priority. Of course, we saw that Backlund played the Vex into the Ahri. Normally you expect stuff like the LeBlanc, which is already banned, the Silas, a number of other picks which can do well into that matchup for various parts of the game. Not focusing on mid lane just yet. Ornn being hovered, Ornn being locked. Team fight impact once again from LDLC, and they have even more zone control. If it was hard to get to the carries last game, having this Talia thrown on top of the Wukong and the Ornn to have so much disruption in the team fight, Dusty already have a very hard job put in front of them if they want to 5v5, which of course they committed to hard.
Well, looks like Dusty may have another trick up their sleeve. They're hovering through a couple of different options before they do.
Troubling the Katarina.
Yeah, Troubling, got the Katarina in there, but don't do it. Oh, my lord. Okay, so Kerberos taking in the Game 5 Darius. I'm not going to get salty about it until if it starts losing, and then I'll figure out if I want to be salty about it.
Well, it is an anti-tank pick. You know you're into that tank topside pick, and you have a matchup in the R which can impact that topside. Both these mid laners are now probably just keeping an eye out towards that top lane going, what's happening up there, lads? Seeing if they can impact that in some way.
Again, we've seen Darius for Kerberos so far this tournament. Hasn't been exceptional. If I'm being totally honest, I believe I casted 2 of those games, so it has not looked exceptional on my radar. But you're looking at exceptional team fighting from the side of LDLC. The Ornn, we saw how powerful with the long-range engages you got with the Call of the Forge God coming in, alongside the Cyclone to be able to kind of set that up. And like you mentioned earlier with the Talia, the zone control. Very difficult to be an Ahri when that Unraveled Dirt's on the ground.
Already, it's looking like Dusty are setting up for a draft which needs individual standout performances. In Game 5, the NLC Finals, Kerberos was on this. Darius is into a Gnar, not a matchup which Darius always likes, but he went 10-2-7 on that. Solo kills galore, absolutely smashed out that matchup versus Chasey, who is one of our very best top laners within the NLC region. Now you're up against Ragnar, you're up against LDLC, up against the LFL first seed. It's such a difficult task, such a level up compared to your regional competition. There are no mistakes which are unpunished here. There are no free rides towards your semi-finals, and LDLC already crafting a composition which is very difficult to get towards the backline. What are you playing towards your backline then? What's going to be a second big carry for Exakick? You still got the Aphelios, Touch is taken off the board. What are you thinking here?
See what they want to go for. Still plenty of time before he has to pick up his particular pick. The Trundle going to be the one locked and loaded here for Linces. So gonna see if he can kind of go toe-to-toe. And again, with something like an Ornn on the opposite side, plenty of stats for him to be able to steal. And you're going to leave that counter pick to the support like yourself and Jamada mentioned.
Sivir was old school countered by Vayne because the amount of auto-attack damage, but it's going to be the Braum again. It's not. So this means you're going to get counter support matchup, okay? That's what we asked Dusty to do. But, oh my word, you are going to struggle to shut down Exakick, regardless of what he plays. Aphelios being hovered, of course, one of his all-time most played, his most famous champion. He's taken a couple of knocks today, a couple of losses on it against what is a historic, crazy record, but just to make it that much harder. This is about the hardest composition to reach the AD carry and I can think of at this point. I mean, someone like Tom Kench can very much go towards it, but you have so many blocking abilities, so many ways to just set up in front of your Zyra and say you are not touching the bird in the backline.
I will say, if you do get caught, though, an apprehend from the Darius, a Trundle pillar, which knocks them back, you are going to be in a very sore position because of the short-range nature of the Xayah. But with the Zillion locked in, you give yourself a literal second life.
You do give yourself a little second life. I don't think it is enough in a 5v5. LDLC have a purely dominant front-to-back team fight. You cannot allow LDLC to stack up if you're a Dusty, and LDLC will try to bend the NLC first seed to their will. But if this does come down to skirmishes, like we were asking Dusty to do in that last game, That's Zilean speeding up that Darius. The Civ are doing the same thing. Suddenly, if you caught out of position, you don't have DOS in the right position, you don't have Exec in the right place to do damage, that Darius actually has target access now. And that's actually kind of terrifying.
I mean, it really is. And honestly, right now, looking at this draft, we just mentioned it there for LDLC, it's front-to-back team fighting. It's having your Ornn and your Wukong in the front there with your Braum, just defending your backline carries, putting out DPS. On the other side, though, for Dusty, throw everything else out the window. It's top lane. It has to be top lane. It has to be Darius on this for Kerberos as well, because if he gets fallen behind, we saw it already earlier today with Nasus, he will just become useless.
I do think it is harder to force onto Darius in this game, particularly when you have the Q healing as well, with that, you know, the massive amount of missing HP heal from that Darius, especially when you have the Trundle, who wins against Wukong in the early matchup too. Now, Wukong is very good at topside brawls, particularly around that first Herald, but if you go towards a 2v2, be wary LDLC. That is how you lose. Get to those 5v5s, and you're in favor. Dusty want to make sure this Darius stops him even thinking about it.
For the fifth and final time today, NLC 1 versus LFL 1, LDLC or Dusty, one of these teams will be going into the semifinals of the Amazon EU Masters. And the other shall be licking their wounds, thinking about 2023. And already we're starting to see very defensive starts. Fan out, get vision down, make sure you're not getting over a cheap kill this early on in the game.
Okay, so I want to draw your eyes to is the Cult onto the Civet. Now, the thing is, you got a Zilean in your lane against a Braum. You know that the support matchup very much helps your laning phase inside of Dusty. Which is that Voxnet knows that it isn't about bot side, just go top. Both teams should recognize that anyway, but still just putting an extra little bit of gold in the bank for a little later into the game for Voxnet. And stand not as many options for LDLC to blow open the 2v2, even though they have been very strong in that regard throughout the entirety of this series. And we are at the end of the series now. It is game 5. There will be no more after this. The show stops after the Nexus falls. And I really do want to take a minute to really, you know, praise Dusty and the NLC for bringing a fight to the LDLC and the LFL, which we didn't expect. They get a ward onto it. X-Kick and DOS looking for a potential level 1 star in that bot side, looking for a good trade. But Dusty in game 5, I don't think anyone realistically expected them to be here outside of a copious amounts of hope.
We'll see what they can do. This is it. You got to make it work for yourselves now. It's either got to be here or it's not going to be till next year. And that's just how it really ends up going right now. As much as best of fives are fantastic, they are brutal as well. One team will be going off with a little bit less of a smile, bittersweet memories, as you say, but should be a decent game should decide it Dusty. And again, I want to bring attention back. We're not really going to see this game really crack open until about the 16-17 minute mark. That's where we've seen all 4 of our games so far just really decide who's going to be taking control, who's going to be feeling more confident, as we can see.
Special.
Nice little spell shield to stop the Q coming in, but no return real damage coming out there. And you got to be careful with these trades right now. The Xayah can get a very surprising amount of feathers down on the ground, and you get those brought back, you're stunned on the rod.
Yeah, it's not the Halo Blade side, which we've occasionally seen in the past. It is going to be that lethal tempo, but you cannot afford to walk over those ones. 2v2, as we said, though, not really the kill lane, which LDLC want to be playing towards. Really interested in seeing what happens towards this top side. Mid-jungle 2v2, also potential for action as well. Taliyah, one of the ways that you deal with this champion is you do get an early gank onto them. Seen that teams like the Mad Lions, who are playing an awful lot of Taliyah in the LEC, had that happen to them a number of times too, especially when their mid laner was so prone to roaming about. And speaking of this mid laner, Iker, long-term player of LDLC, but has yet to win an EU Masters title with them. He's gonna get ganked in the mid lane.
Yeah, he's gonna get flashed upon as well. Can they get the charm? Feel like Backlund just waited that little bit too long, and now he's in a little bit of trouble himself. We're gonna see them getting the decoy out. He flashes over. Does he get enough of a heal? No, he does not. The smite is good. And that means that Lincest just has to walk away. You can see what they wanted to go for there, but Backlund just holds the charm too long.
Oh, game 1, game 5, same intro. And this time it even goes a little bit different, a little worse for Dusty. Back in game 1, it was the mid-jungle, first blood, but then an overstep. This time it's just a little bit of hesitation. You're right in saying that. The slow comes down onto Iker, gets into the wave. I think Backlund actually leveled up the Q twice, didn't have the charm, and doesn't calculate the damage, doesn't have an ignite, has the teleport in there. And then Yike comes in to clean up. We knew that LDLC throughout the entirety of this year actually been very good at shielding mid. And it's DOS and it's Yike that turn up mid in this all-important Game 5 to decide these two teams' fates.
Again, one small moment like that, it was Dusty who looked to make the advantage. It was Dusty who wanted to try and find something, and sadly for them, they find themselves down a kill. It's not the worst thing in the world. We definitely have seen worse starts turn better, but you definitely don't want to be starting off that way, especially considering you want to try and make this top side. Like, your flash for your Trundle is so powerful in those early ganks that not having that now just delays any kind of power spike.
Yeah. Now, you can see that Lince's just heading towards bot side, trying to shield this bot lane as they shove in, as they try and crash, but Dusty, that shotgun of gank of the flash, where you have one shot, got to reload for next couple of minutes. Maybe it's more like a musket at that point. I don't know if it's one shot in it. Lince misses it though, so close to being a turning play, but now this Talia safe in this early lane, managed to overcome one of the first hurdles you need to do at that point. Top lane though, slowly going towards Kerberos in the micro, taking some poor trades because of course one has lots of base damage, but still Kerberos able to keep the wave on his side of the lane, not going to be punished at this point, no threat of the dive at the same time, so Dusty's top lane able to be safely up in this lane.
And it might look like Ragnar has got himself a back and he's going back again. No, he's just an Ornn. He's able to pick up those items for himself. So it's always the annoying thing about going against an Ornn. Yes, you might have the anti-tank matchup in the Darius, but you also got to be aware he's going to be able to pick up small little item spikes like that. Little bits of the boots, the cloth armors, small things like that. But with the resets coming in here for Dusty, it means they are not in position to be able to hold their waves and contest this dragon. This is a very early dragon.
It is a very early dragon, but also you don't have any way to fight it as Dusty, right? You've used your flashes in the mid-jungle. You don't have an engaging support, which means it's hard to lock down that first target and pin them down. And this really is kind of a follow-on effect of what happened in that mid lane 2v2. LDLC walk out with kill, survive as well. They managed to go back towards this dragon, claim that one. It's not going to be a trade for anything like a Herald. The Herald hasn't even spawned yet. You're absolutely right. It's a very early dragon. They're hard to kill nowadays. Right from the off, they still get it nonetheless. When they have an Ornn, when they have that Braum, so much value from that 9% defensive stat increase of both armor and magic resist from one stack of that man dragon.
See just how tense this game is
Oh,
right
6.
now. We're going to see now Kerberos going in. Does get the apprehend, which completely stops the Ornn Horn, but don't think it matters because the minions are hitting you, and that's a solo bolo going over to the LDLC top laner. But can Linkus make this one work? So Linkus, excuse me, going in back and trying to make this one work for himself. Does have the Trundle pillar to be able to use in a second, but just not really finding a position. And I think Ragnar just breaks his ankles.
Ragnar has been sat here for most of this series just playing out their role for his team. And he gets the solo kill against Kerberos, who has effectively ego-picked in Game 5 and said, look, give me comfort, I'll make it work. He gets solo kill right from the off, level 6 hit, gets a trade of that Brittle, gets one Brittle poke after that point, doesn't get the second go through, but just look at the damage he's bringing through. And Kerberos just underestimates the damage.
I mean, it was the Ignite, the Summoner spellbook that came in as just, again, you have the Ignite, you have got the trading power because you know the Kerberos has gone with the Ghost, which is to chase you down, not put damage onto you. It will be a trade of blue buffs on either side, but this game's already 1,000 gold in the Ascendancy for LDLC, and it's starting to not look great for Dusty. They need to make this topside work. We talked about it. If this goes to 5v5s, the LDLC have all the answers.
And while you still have a gold lead to Kerberos, it should be more. That's what we're trying to say here, right? Where you have Linces and Kerberos able to control the top side of the map, but the fact that Ragnar could get something from this top side is worrying for Dusty, because if it does get to an even mid-game where Ragnar can hold a side lane, can actually force the 5v5s because he can teleport in, that is absolute horror for Dusty. They need to have solo, individual carry performances. Already we've seen some missteps from backline to Kerberos. LDLC expecting that mid lane play, punishing it accordingly. Ragnar outplaying in that top side, and they are so important in this early game to get them towards their win conditions.
I like what Dusty are doing, though. They recognize that Voxna, let's be real, it's a Braum. He's not going to be killed anytime soon as long as he keeps himself safe. And with the amazing amount of, wow, that was a pretty quick...
Mind games from Dust.
I was going to say, Dust just kind of said, look, I've got people here. Call my bluff.
Yeah, and if you've got a Ghost on next kick and suddenly that Q lands, the slow probably means you're dead at that point. So the Voxna losing out on the mind game. DOS getting a ultimate for free, and admittedly, Sivir is still not at the point, but they really want to be impacting the map. It is not really much other use for that ultimate at this point. It's still something. Micro advantages going over to LDLC. It has been a hard-fought series for them. And it's getting towards the point in the game where they are so much more comfortable in getting towards that mid game. Kerberos not a threat of being dove at this point, but LDLC, we kind of called them this sword on a string hanging above Dusty's head earlier in the series. The sword of Damocles, waiting for it to fall. And in this game, it feels a little bit like that again.
Like what Kerberos did there, just made sure the plate goes down without anyone in range of it, so no one gains any gold for that. So nicely done by them, as we do now have Sten just trying to see if he can maybe make something work. And he's just going to have to sit here now until that ultimate's back up for Denvox. Now, it shouldn't do too much longer, but again, that extra little bit of safety is going to be needed, which does free up DOS. DOS kind of goes, cool, I don't really think there's any kill pressure bot side, so I can now move around with my jungle. I can impact the mid lane, perhaps, or at bare minimum, get information of where the trundle is, which they just got.
Yes, they know where Linksys is. And we've seen a lot of this series being contested, actually, over knowing where the enemy jungler is. I think one thing that we have to call out is how well Linksys has done in regards to Yike. This hasn't been a walk in the park for this jungler. So many eyes have been on in the ERLs, but Yike has still had an excellent series, particularly in their wins on this Wukong. Such a force of nature, triple kills. So many teamfight engages working out for LDLC. Dusty really struggled to answer that as soon as Yike has been on this Wukong. This Wukong has been a deciding pick in some ways across the drafts in this series.
I mean, game one, Dusty looked exceptional on it. It looked really like they knew exactly how they wanted to play around it. And that level of play, that level of engage, just having the flashes, the safety as well with the decoys, there's so many ways that you can kind of bait people out that it just adds so much power to your composition. But Yike up to this top side, Kerberos recognizing this.
He's been spotted. He was on a ward. But what's happening here is we're trading some vision on sides of the map. Kerberos is not in position to fight around this dragon. And because you have that very early dragon setup, and LDLC putting a lot of effort into clearing out, putting down wards, which Dusty have actually returned in kind at this point. Dragon is up in 10 seconds. Kerberos actually walking down to the play.
Oh, double bomb means a stun. We get the charm down. No, we do not, but we do get Shelly. So only 2 plates really going in. Actually, not even going down
this could actually be straight up kill.
They're just going to knock it, They're not going to be able to stop it. That's a big, big hit there for Dusty. You would have loved that extra little bit of gold, even in anyone's pockets.
Does this actually mean Dragon goes over? If that's the case, I don't mind it, oddly enough, because one of the worries I was having, and of course, this is not best case scenario, but one of the worries I was having is that early first dragon, second dragon goes over to LDLC, suddenly your side lane, split the map kind of playstyle is going to really suffer. Yike has flash, has the clone, but not able to get over here. Dusty, stop the early stacks at the very least, and you don't have what would be arguably worst case scenario, where you are being forced to group earlier than you want to because of early soul points being threatened by LDLC.
I will say, though, it doesn't mean a plate goes over to Ragnar, who did not roam down. So, again, equal and opposite reaction available for LDLC. They don't send as many people down towards that dragon, which means they get a little bit of extra gold. And this game continues to be very close. But I got to put a highlight right now onto these jungles because it has to come down to Linksys. He's got to make something happen on this Trundle because right now he's not going to have the same level of impact.
And the problem I have now is that if he's trying to make any impact, got to look out for 1, Ornn ult. 2, Talia ult. Very, very difficult to deal with. And of course, you've got to watch out for DOS roaming about the map as well. So you've got multiple people that can turn up to a play and absolutely shift things in LDLC's favor. Ica using that second thing that we were talking about. Kerberos caught out.
Kerberos is 100% caught out. Does get the flash over the wall, but still gets hit by the Ornn Horn. Has to use the Ghost now. So Cyclone actually just misses there. So Yike not able to get the CC down.
DOS might be a little bit caught.
He's got the stand behind me to keep himself safe. The Trundle Pillar not great, to be honest with you. Did knock people back from Backlund's charm, and while this 4v4 is happening on the top side, the AD carries are having a little bit of PvE action. They're not bothered by this right now because they're just saying, cool, we need to get ourselves farmed up and we need to get ourselves our first items.
Okay, but you have just blown 1, 2, 3 ultimates. You see, I like that little tool. But either way, LDLC now looking to do something on the bot side.
That's a kick. He's going to be able to circle resets. He's going to flash. And that's the feathers you want to be seeing. That ain't no chicken coming into the bot side, but he's used a hell of a lot. Ghost and flash and ultimate. DOS is here. Backlund does use the ultimate to try and maybe get something there, but a great Q means there's no way you can catch up, and that means there's no response here for Dusty.
And Exekick popped the Ghost, had the kill, which means it extends by a number of seconds after that point. The move speed gets them out. And once again, Dusty, they look for a play to try and clean something up, look for an aggressive play, and they just kind of miscalculate. Exekick cannot sing this guy's praises enough. Has had a bit of a difficult series, actually, particularly when he's been struggling on one of his most important picks of that Aphelios. In the 1v1 under turret in the deciding game, solo kill under turret.
It's 2 solo kills now we've seen. One in top side, one in bot. Both lanes going in favor of LDLC. And it does feel like Dusty are just falling further and further behind. They are falling further and further behind. It's about 1,500 gold now in favor, a little bit more than that in favor of LDLC. There's no more plates. You're not going to get that instant gratification. You do have Kerberos going actually for the Triforce this time around, not going towards the Stride Breaker.
But if you have the Swiftness boots as well, the move speed is absolutely insane. You are not running from this guy, particularly when you're dealing with Braum Qs, dealing with Ornn having a lot of slows in his kit as well. Lots of value to both of those items in being able to have the sticking power to run people down. Dusty, they get themselves the second Herald. This is now an incredibly important thing to track. They need to open up mid lane if at all possible. They need to open up the map.
He's going to have the Zillion ultimate to keep himself there. It's only got a couple more seconds on it. They wanted to try and see if they could delay it out, but not quite there. But now you don't have a Sivir, which means you don't have a defense. That's going to be another tower. And not quite just yet, though. Kerberos here is still a very scary prospect, and they still back themselves away. But this is the timing I was talking about. This is the 15 to 20-minute mark where LDLC and their wins have just come alive. You need to hold here, Dusty. You need to stop the bleeding. Otherwise, there's no hope.
Yeah, and they can't be just randomly buying into fights as well. That's what's happened to them in Game 4. One of the reasons that they got to this point. They had some moments in Game 4 where things looked good for them. Bought into a lot of 5v5s they had no business in being around. Fell behind at that point, but LDLC so good at putting themselves in the right position, forcing Dusty's hand. Yike, looking for Chica Steal, and he gets it.
Yeah, he does get it, and he's going to be able to get out as well. That's just kind of very frustrating as I say that. Yike does have Flash available to him, and they know exactly where he is. He's been slowed. He does have Cyclone, and Yike might have overextended, apprehended, taken down. Kerberos gets himself a kill. Dusty's still alive.
Man, he walks up, he emotes, he dies. Backlund forced out of the ult in that boss side, but Dusty finally on the board. They take down that jungler, and Yike really just a little bit over aggressive. Didn't have the support needed. It took a flash from Sten, took a couple of investments of ults from Dusty, but they do get a bit of a reprieve from this early game to mid game of LDLC.
As you mentioned, it delays 25 seconds till the next dragon spawns. You won't have the Cyclone until a bit later after that, so bit of an ultimate not longer available. Then Voxna will be waiting for his on the hunt. Kerberos waiting for someone to walk up, but just kind of says, no, I need to get this wave pushed, and I need to reset because I do not have teleport. Ragnar does, and that's where this game gets a little bit more funky because Dusty are running with a single teleport on Backlund who doesn't even have a summoner spell book, so he's going to have to try and be the big flank.
And which is why I really wanted to look earlier into the game to see what was going to happen with Dusty's top side. Sten, Corporate has the ult.
Hexa kick, goes up into stasis, the exhaust is good, and those, as is the concussive blows. Then Voxna is traded. They gain 2 and lose absolutely none. Ragnar TP's in just for safety. Ike very low, but he's still a Talia. Still so difficult to kill him off. And with the Darius resetting on the top side, Kerberos can't even trade for the tower.
And in the losses that Dusty had in the group stage against the LFL, what the LFL team did, in this case Game Ward, was punish Dusty's bot lane in that mid lane trying to wave clear. Happens again in the most important game of their season, Game 5 against LDLC, and X-Kick sat now 2-0 and 1. Den Voxna sadly not at the same, minus 2,000 to 3,000 gold in the return. But Dusty not ready to give up this dragon just yet.
Not just yet. Backlund moves forward. They don't know the dragon and they don't know what health it's on, so they're just going to back themselves away. They don't have full information.
Are they baiting into a fight?
They're trying to. This is the timing. This is what I was talking about right now. Dusty looking to try and take out Doss, but he pumps up the door, so he knows he's pretty safe. The Ornhorn comes down, hits on the 3. It's going to be a knock up there as Yike gets out onto the clone. The dragon resets and will eventually be felled. They are going to take that one over for themselves, so LDLC will get that. Kerberos, who's very low, just going to herald in the Herald into that mid lane push.
But Dusty is still trying for some reason to go towards the 5v5s. This one just about works out. They've managed to get that Herald into the mid lane, take down the mid outer turret. That is something for them. But again, it is so treacherous getting past the terrain and the front line which LDLC have. Dusty almost lucky to get away without losing more kills in that scenario.
They get a bit of gold back into the mid lane and a second charge, so that mid lane tier 2 is very, very low. But LDLC maybe sat on the laurels a little bit. Yike didn't have smite. You could tell that they were very nervous about that dragon fight. They didn't want to fully commit to it. Dusty do push them back. They still lose the dragon, but it's 2-1 in that regards anyway. 2,000 gold lead now for LDLC, just a little bit underneath it. As we look to see where both these sides want to try and focus in. Looks like X-Kick with those late resets from Dusty is going to be able to pick up that mid lane in response.
And X-Kick has items and has levels. Look at that, level 12, then Voxner, level 10, really shut out. We talked about how Dusty had struggled a little bit in terms of how their bot lane does when it shifted around the map. They were punished versus Game Ward in the group stage when they had their 2v2 trying to wave clear in mid. And in this game, LDLC done very, very similar. 3,000 gold, the advantage between AD carries. If it comes down to 5v5s, cannot stress this enough. Said it in the draft, said it right now. Dusty do not win front to back.
Come back in. It's a trade for the top turret for the bottom lane. So Dusty not making sure they're not falling too far behind, but a 2,500 gold lead regardless. LDLC very much firmly in control as we start to see Ragnar go up towards nearing that level 14 mark where he's going to start upgrading those items. You've got a 3,000 gold lead. Basically, the gold lead is on Exakick. He's got himself a Phantom Dancer. He's building up to that late game massive carry that is the crit carry of Isaiah. So this game isn't going to get any easier. And honestly, Kerberos, he needs to be the big hero. We've set it up so many times. Yeah. He has to catch Exakick.
And I think the real difficulty is Dusty are a team which has loved team fighting. They've loved playing around their picks in awkward situations and just making it work because they're confident and they know how to play their combos. That doesn't work in this game. You can see that they're stacking in mid lane, but I just don't think this is safe. I think this is testament to how much of a difficulty they've had in this mid lane. It's happening again!
Den Voxna, he gets caught out and forced into stasis. He's all alone in the world. He's going to flash over to Talia Wall, who flashes after him. Exakick thinks he might have him, and Exakick has to go into stasis. He'll still get hit by the bomb. And nobody actually dies, but a hell of a lot of summoners were burned.
Dusty are so lucky in this scenario. LDLC poised, ready, prepared to punish Dusty. They see them in the mid lane and like, okay, yeah, we have Weaver's Wall. We have these abilities to close on the mid lane much earlier. We can chase you down. And Dusty oh so lucky to get away with that one, using the Zillion ult, using pretty much all of their summoners they had available too. And it ends up as a 0-kill trade.
0 kill, but hell of a lot of summoners burned. No summoners now for Den Voxna, but equally Exakick doesn't have his. So we'll see if there's anything that's going to be changing off of that in a minute 45. Neither AD carry will have their 2 summoners available. You can see Den Voxna, he really just wants to try and catch up. He's basically two levels and a half behind Exakick right now, so he is just so far behind the power spikes of everything this AD carry on LDLC is doing.
Yeah, Kerberos, again, really the sole hope of Dusty, but it's not like Ragnar has shown any kind of weakness there either. Down a little bit of gold, sure. It's the one big gold lead which Dusty have, but Spawn is still holding lane. Spawn is still being relevant when it comes to the team fights, and it's not like Kerberos has become a win condition yet. He's just a burgeoning threat, one that's not really grown into fruition at this time. And Dusty, I don't know much how longer they can wait. At least Dusty took that one dragon. Talked about that earlier. It means that LDLC are not on soul point right now. Otherwise, it would have been a very difficult situation in a minute's time. I think Dusty probably have to give up that dragon. Maybe they can look for a pick around the side of the fight, but I just cannot see them winging a 5v5 situation. There's got a sting for them because that's been where they've typically found a lot of their advantages as a team.
And I will say, though, because the gold lead is Exakick, Exakick dies, it's an even fight. There is so much there, but again, it's about can you, how do you? That's the big thing that Dusty got to go for right now. When we're Kerberos,
it has to be a mistake. It has to be a mistake,
or it has to be a massive capitalization here, or a massive outplay, if you will, from Dusty, because I just don't see how it works. Yes, your Darius is a little bit ahead. That's great, but your Darius isn't going to do a lot. Again, it's why we don't really see this champ in the meta as much, is because how does he actually make a fight?
Oh, he's caught.
He's caught a little bit. He flashes away, so you're not going to be able to have him flashing on a fight. 12 seconds to the dragon spawns. Flash in from Yike, but Den Voxna does get himself away just about. Keeps the ultimate from the Zillion on top of him as I get a 3-man knock up, or 3-man stun, but it's just not good enough, and it feels like Dusty, they're falling to the wayside. LDLC have found themselves the answers, and Dusty they've got nothing left.
LDLC see Dusty grouped once more, and the 5v5 is where they are so strong. They're so happy to take this fight. Sure, Ragnar gets pulled over a wall. He's got summoners, that's fine. There's no damage left for Dusty to really play.
There's no damage for Dusty, but there isn't a support now for LDLC, and they're taking a hell of a lot of poke from this Baron. You can see Kerberos trying to be the carry he needs to be to get on top of the Exakick, but they can't get him off. The one thing they do though is they stop the Baron going down, so Dusty survive, and they can turn for the Dragon, which delays that even further.
Yeah, actually, that is a pretty big misstep from LDLC. I thought that should have been the knockout punch. You get yourself onto that soul point, they do lose one member around that Baron. Yes, there are some globals available. You don't have the Weaver's Wall, but you're now going into Dusty, who get to set up their own terrain. What can they do with this? Kerberos happy to start this up on his own.
Yeah, Kerberos is going to try and start it. They're clearing out the vision on the backside.
Yeah, I think that's right. If LDLC teleport in and they lose a load of kills, that's pretty much how they end up snowballing the game away from them. Dusty trying to rush this down, should be able to finish it.
I don't know, it's going to be close. They do have the Sivir off to the side, so it's a 4v5, two-man knock-up as the Ornn goes in as the Vanguard. They get a charm onto Exekick, which just kind of stops them from moving forward. The stun is good, but only for a little bit. The flick back is better. Sten goes down. Dragon was secured by Dusty. They could go straight back, though, for LDLC, straight over to the Baron.
Okay, can they actually start it up, though? It looks like you've got a teleport from Backland and the ability to reset and get into position as Dusty. I think they can start posturing around it, but it's not going to be a clean secure just yet. It is a kill for a Dragon trade. No Zillion on the board to threaten that front line from LDLC, to threaten those slows, and it does look actually like Dusty. They're a little slow to this. What can they do? They're
a little slow, but they should just be here. They're moving forward now. Kerberos gets a pink ward in, so they know what's going down. There is no flash in this Trundle, but do you have timers on it? There's the On the Hunt coming out as the Baron goes down to 2,000 HP. There's the Glacial Fissure.
How do you get in?
Oh, you just can't follow in on that. Then Voxna now has to try and retreat from this as the drag. Baron has been secured. Lyca has one target, and it is this Sivir. The Talia just keeps throwing rocks at your head, and there's nowhere for you to go. It's a 4 for none, the Baron, and you gotta feel like that's the series.
They were pushed, they were pulled, but they stand up time after time. LDLC right on the edge, but not out, not down, and still heading forwards in this EU Masters.
They're going to keep pushing. They won't be able to end the game just yet, but you can imagine they're going to put this base into absolute tatters. There's not a lot left to do here for Sten. He's got to wait for his teammates. He's got to wait for his team to get back up, respawn, and look to make some kind of a final stand. But the goal leads now nearly 10k.
And though the Nexus doesn't fall here, this is the back-breaking play. This is the one which just knocks the wind out of your sails as Dusty, because you know you have to contest this. You give up a Baron, you can't play through those side lanes, but it's Voxna who's caught on the side. Had a very difficult game on the Sivir, caught out a lot of times in the side lane, or in the mid lane, when everyone comes in from the sides to go back towards them. And really struggling to get anything done in these team fights. So difficult to get through that terrain. The Brawl Mult, the Unraveled Earth, LDLC not making it easy for Dusty and Voxna, though he's had an excellent series in his own right. In the losses, really been struggling to impact the game, and this one is sadly no different. Many items behind Exekick, now down an Ornn item to the Xayah as well.
Oh, Stand. Oh, Stand, you got to be so careful. This is your final stand to come into this one here, and look, I understand the curb comfort, but the Darius just wasn't it. They didn't get it rolling. They didn't get any influence on that top side of the map. They tried to go for mid lane to maybe get something going for Backland, but so far it hasn't really worked out. And I will say, yes, it isn't over just yet. You still have a Sivir, but that is a 3.5 item, fully Ornn upgraded Xayah versus a 2 and a bit item here for the Sivir. There's just no comparison.
And this whole game has been about, how do you make the game not about Exekick? How do you make it not about the Xayah? But LDLC have forced the issue. They're forcing into the base.
There he is. It's going to be the last fight. You got to make a stand somewhere, and they're going to make it just here. There is the chrono shift to come out as they try and jump an Exekick. Flick back means that Backland has no more say in this fight. Kerberos just can't have an impact. He's on a Darius with no way onto the back line. But you know who does? Yika, as then Voxna all alone against a tank trying to survive. And the base is in tatters. LDLC, they're going to be able to print this one off nice and pretty. It was a hard-fought battle, but at the end, the LFL #1 are looking like they're going to be good. As I say that, though, there's some very low health bars. Exekick needs to make sure he doesn't die to make sure they can put the end of this game.
Fox is marching into the hen house. Let's see how bloody they come out.
Yeah, they've got to be able to do it. Exekick takes out the only real threat. And in the game 5, banger, 3-2. LDLC will continue their march towards the Amazon EU Masters title. They will not let Dusty rain on their parade, and they will continue on into the knockouts.
Bit of heartbreak for Dusty. 2-1 up.